Visitors in the night 1. The two men at the doorway was 18 that summer school was out. No job, no worries. Most of my days were spent inside, playing video games or binge-watching shows. My parents were away on a trip, which wasn't unusual. I actually enjoyed having the house to myself. It was around midnight when I heard a knock at the front door. At first, I almost got up to answer it without thinking, but something in my head told me to stop. It was far too late for visitors. I peered through the peephole. Two men, both dressed in dark clothes, stood on the porch. They looked ordinary, but their timing made it unsettling. One of them called out, "Hello? We're here to speak with Mr. and Mrs. Ian." That was my parents' last name, though I've changed it for privacy. I didn't respond. Something about the way they stood there in silence, waiting, felt wrong. After a moment, they whispered to each other and walked off into the darkness. I waited for the sound of a car, but none came. No headlights, no engine, just silence. I stayed still, watching, but then faint footsteps. They came back. This time, they didn't knock. They walked around the side of the house. I ran quietly to the back window and froze. Through the glass, I saw them opening the fence gate and stepping into the backyard. One of them started fiddling with the back door handle. That's when I grabbed my phone and hid in the garage, whispering to the police dispatcher that someone was trying to break in. A loud pop echoed through the house. They had forced the door open. Their footsteps creaked across the floor, up the stairs, into my parents' bedroom. Then silence. I stayed hidden for 10 excruciating minutes before red and blue lights finally flashed outside. The moment the police entered, I heard quick movements upstairs, then yelling. The officers arrested both men, though they said nothing about why they were there. The detectives later told me it didn't seem like a robbery. They weren't there for money. They were waiting maybe for my parents, too. The camper 4 years later, I had moved to Wyoming. I lived alone, far from town, where rain poured endlessly through spring. One evening, around p.m., I heard a knock on my door. A stranger stood there drenched, maybe in his late 20s. He said he'd been camping in the woods and got lost, asking if he could stay the night. I offered to call him a ride. He refused. When I told him he couldn't stay, he stared at me blankly, then turned and walked off into the rain. I watched him vanish into the forest, uneasy but relieved. Hours later, through the window, I saw a campfire burning in the woods behind my house, faint and orange through the downpour. Someone was standing next to it.
I called the police, reporting a suspicious man camping near my property. Before they could arrive, I heard footsteps approaching the house. I peeked through another window. It was him, holding a hunting rifle. He marched to my front door and slammed the stock of his gun against it. I barely had time to grab my handgun when the door cracked open slightly, fired a warning shot through the frame. The noise deafened me, but when my hearing came back, he was gone. Later, the police found his campsite. Buried near the fire pit was a duffel bag, filled with tools, rope, duct tape, gloves, a knife. A burglary or murder kit, they called it. Whoever he was, he had buried it long before that night, and came back for it. To this day, he's never been found. 3. The man in the mask. When I was 17, my mom worked overnight shifts, so I was used to being home alone. One night, around 3:30 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps downstairs. I thought my mom had just gotten home early, but she usually went straight upstairs, and whoever was down there was slowly walking through each room. Then, everything went silent. I turned on my bedroom light, and the footsteps stopped. I opened my door and crept to the top of the stairs. The entire house was dark, but when I reached the kitchen, my heart nearly stopped. A muddy shoe print marked the floor. Then I saw him, a man, sitting at the dining table, wearing all black, a dark mask over his face. He stared at me motionless, silent. I ran back upstairs, locked myself in my room, and called 911. As I whispered to the dispatcher, I heard the man's footsteps climbing the stairs, then stopping at my door, and then the front door opened. He left. Mom pulled into the driveway seconds later. The police found nothing, no evidence. But one thing was clear. He wasn't there to rob the house. He was waiting for my mom. 4. The stranger in the shed. Years later, after retiring early, I moved to a quiet rural area. The road outside my house rarely saw anyone, so when I saw a man walking alone one afternoon, I took notice. No backpack, no car, no purpose. That night, while I was eating dinner, I heard a loud thud from outside. I looked through the window. The door to my shed was wide open. I grabbed my rifle and went to check. Nothing seemed disturbed inside, so I latched the door shut and started walking back. But as I reached the porch, I felt that uneasy, primal instinct that I wasn't alone. Inside, muddy footprints led across the hallway to the spare bedroom. I pressed my ear to the door and heard breathing on the other side. Before I could react, the handle twisted and the door flew open. A man stood there, a shovel raised above his head, rage burning in his eyes. I screamed for him to stay back, raising my rifle. For a moment, we both froze. Then he threw the shovel at me, turned, and crawled out the window, vanishing into the night.
He was never identified, and I know, if I hadn't been armed that night, I wouldn't be here to tell this story. -5. The Airbnb was supposed to be a simple overnight stay, a small Airbnb, far out of town, cleaner and safer looking than the local hotels. When I arrived, it was past midnight. The entire town was dead quiet. Only one upstairs window glowed faintly with light, probably left on by the last guest. Inside, everything felt normal. I unpacked, turned off that upstairs light, and went to bed. Hours later, I woke to a thud echoing through the walls. Then, silence. Then, soft creaking. It was footsteps, moving slowly, closer, until they stopped right outside my door. I held the handle tight, and felt it turn from the other side. Whoever it was tried again, harder this time, slamming into the door. I shoved back with all my strength, seeing just half of a face through the crack, eyes full of fury. I managed to lock it again, and after a moment, they ran downstairs. The front door slammed. I called the police, trembling. They arrived quickly, but the man was gone. The Airbnb owner took over the case. I never followed up, but I'll never forget those eyes. That desperate, violent look, like he wasn't there to steal anything. He was there for me.